Welcome to the Warriors Race podcast. Thank you for being my guest. I really like your t-shirt right off the bat. That's the vibe. Yeah. Yeah. I'm so excited we're doing this. This is going to be a lot of fun. I actually was thinking about it. The first time I ever experienced a podcast was live in Austin when you recorded a podcast with Kevin, and I got to sit quietly in the hotel room and film a little bit. And it was such a cool experience because I just got to like listen in on this conversation with the expectation being to not participate. And I loved how it felt. And I'd actually never really listened to podcasts before that. And so that was like, that planted the seed actually for like, I got on the plane later that day and I was like, I'm going to start a podcast. And this was it. And I was like on the plane, on airplane mode, and just like download after download, like Warriors Race. And this is what it's about. And anyway, so thank you.
That's so cool that you had that experience and it inspired you. So you hadn't considered doing it before that?
No, I
That
don't
was the
think
first time.
so. I think not really considered it. Like I think I was aware that it was something that people did that was kind of
Mm.
cool, but I think watching you guys, yeah, it sort of like clicked to me. I was like, oh, they're having a conversation that I get to. It actually reminded me of being a child. Like I grew up around a lot of adults mostly, and like spent a fair bit of time being the only child in any dinner party or whatever. So I listened in on a lot of adult conversations. And I was like, oh, I love this. But because it had that feeling of like being part of a conversation without needing to contribute. I'm not sure why, but I really liked that. So yeah. And yeah, it was so simple. The way that you did it was just so fluid. Like, I think you had an hour before you had to be at the airport, and there we were in Kevin's hotel recording, and I was like, oh, this gets to be like natural and easy. And yeah, it was really beautiful. And also what you guys talked about, I was like, oh, I love these stories. Like I still remember snippets of that conversation on a daily basis almost. So yeah, it's cool.
That was such a power-packed conversation for sure.
Yeah. Baby Spring Money was I think the title maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Wow,
here
I'm
we
just
are
looking at
today.
myself in the camera. Oh man,
Yeah.
I'm due for a trim.
For a trim. You got the wild road man going on.
Yeah,
Road trip man.
I like when the beard is a little, more, I don't know, cleaned up personally.
Yeah.
Yeah. 6 days on the road, Veronica. Six
I think
days
they
of
wrote a
driving.
song. Yeah.
That's a song.
I think so. 6 days on the road. And I'm gonna see my baby tonight. I'm pretty sure that's a lyric. Yeah.
Really?
Really, I'll look it up for you later.
It probably
Yeah.
is. There's probably a country song about it.
It's definitely country. So yeah, I'm like, where do we start? I'd love to hear about, well, there's so many things that I actually wrote down. I was like, there's so many things I want to talk to you about in this conversation, or hear you tell stories I want to hear you tell, essentially. And I guess to start with, I'd love to hear about, I'm just going to start with like actually a fairly big question, and you can take it wherever you want to go. But I'd love to hear about one of the hardest things you've ever faced in life. Could be a physical challenge or something else. Yeah, just going to start there.
That's I like the question. I like the depth of the question. My first thought was the death of my grandmother. And then the second thought was I was when my first business was sort of failing and making the decision to like close down, like stop doing business and um, move on. And yeah, that first one, I was, I think I was 18 years old when my grandmother died, and we were just very close. We were really close, and it wasn't the first time I had experienced loss of a close loved one, but for some reason, um, it felt different that time. And I think I was also, at a stage in my life where I'm growing up and becoming an adult and taking some more responsibility for myself, and then experiencing this like tragic loss. It was difficult, and I remember, um, I remember after like finding out that my grandmother had passed away, which we were expecting. I mean, she was sick for a couple of years, and in you know in like a care unit where there's for people who are dying, hot like hospice care. And even when you expect death to come, even when you like know um that it's going to happen, and you sort of mentally prepare yourself for that, you still feel all of the loss. You still feel it. And this was like the first time I realized that, like I tried so hard to like block my emotions and um, be very stoic at the time. I was really trying to be that like a stoic like man of the house. Like that was the role that I was playing. And you still feel the emotion. And I felt that loss like immensely. And I held it in for years. Like I just prevented myself from feeling grief. And I say that's like the most challenging thing, because it was like I was going through a self-imposed, I was in a self-imposed prison, you know, and it was really affecting my relationships and really affecting like my friendships. I had, um, sort of withdrawn from people, from social situations, and um, started like drinking a lot, drinking a lot of alcohol. Like if I did go out and like see people, it would be for that. All because I was like not allowing myself to just, you know, feel. Years of not even recognizing that I was self-sabotaging. I don't know if you've ever had an experience like that, but when you finally realize, you look in the mirror and you're like, what have I been doing all this time? But what I found, Veronica, is that it's, you know, and I even see it now, like growing up, I was taught, that a man should be stoic and rational and not show any emotion. And I see it now because I see my father, uh, uh, son tells him, like, hey, stop crying, don't cry. And I softly remind him, like, no, so just let him cry it out, it's all good. And it brings back memories, of that experience as a kid, when all I wanted to do was like feel something, usually in my face and usually involving tears. I didn't cry for at least 5 years straight. Could you imagine? Like I didn't never it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Was
that
there
was challenging.
a moment that, yeah, totally. Was there a moment that like that shifted you out of that? Like, did something happen that where you finally allowed yourself to feel those things, or do you remember if it was like a specific event or moment, or just was it subtle?
Um, yeah, there were quite a few moments. Um, and it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it was that, you know, that was the big catalyst, right? Or what really made a difference. But I had experienced a lot of other, tragedy, we can say. Um, I had a really low point in my life in 2015. At the end of 2015, and after a year of like really trying to grow a business and failing miserably because like I had taken on way too much debt that I wasn't able to control. I had commitments. I had a lease at a building, and I had clients that I was taking care of, but not really focusing on growing the business. And I had so much to learn about money and about marketing and sales and leadership. And after a year of like struggling to get by, everything came to like a screeching halt. Basically, got to the point where it was like if I don't pay rent, like I'm not going to be able to stay in the building that we're leasing for the gym that I was running. And my options were, well, go and find money that can keep us afloat and just keep trying for another month and another month and another month, or like just cut my losses now. And I got the opportunity to like I negotiated with my landlord who I owed, debt like back rent to. I negotiated with him like just a price for us to leave. Like I'd pay him some of the rent that I owed him as long as we got out within like 3 days. Um, but I made that decision and it wasn't easy. And it was like right after Christmas that year. And so I remember like writing an email to all my clients, the members of the gym, and just letting them know like we won't be open anymore. Uh, and it wasn't even like I'm giving them a day or a week or a couple of weeks notice. I'm like, no, like we're done now. Like we're not going to be running classes tomorrow, which was really painful, to be writing that because I had let it get to that point. I had let it get so far where it was like now or never. Um, but I sent that email and I was like just looking around the room, looking around my office and blaming myself, wondering, where I went wrong. And then I get uh, a text message from my sister, like at that very moment. And it says that my other grandmother was in the hospital and she was in a coma. It's like she wasn't going to survive, you know, maybe another day. And it was another like expected thing. but I remember reading that message, and I just collapsed to the floor and I'm bawling in tears. And I like genuinely have not cried before that for years.
Mm.
But I'm like laying on the ground, and I'm just allowing it to happen. It's just pouring out of my face, and my body is like shivering. And for some reason, I felt so at peace after that because I didn't hold it in. You know, I just let it happen, and I let myself feel all the feels, and I really like I felt angry, you know, and I remember screaming, and I felt sad, and I felt like confused, like, oh, what am I going to do now? And it all just was hitting me at once, and then it was gone, and I felt this like overwhelming sense of peace. My body had just like surrendered, you know. And I had read a few books, you know, about mindfulness and um, breathing and mental toughness and yoga and spiritual practices. And I was trying to integrate those lessons, you know, previously to like with some success, but not, this was different, you know, this was very different. And I started to feel like I had power and control, and I felt free
Mm.
because like from that moment like wild things started to happen.
Mm.
Like so within 3 days I had moved all of the gym equipment out of that building into another locate like another space, like gym space that was given to me. And like I wasn't even paying rent. I was just running classes in this new gym, but I had zero responsibility. It was just to run the classes and market and learn and like um, you know, grow the program, which was relieving, and it was so cool. And it just was presented to me within just 3 days. And I'm like, oh, I should have done this sooner. But you know, it doesn't work that way, right? It's always requires some intervention, you can say. So if I have to pinpoint a moment, like that was it. But there had been like a lot of preparation for being able to um, like just let myself feel so
Yeah.
much, you know? And it's so funny how easy things got after that. And I'm not saying like they stayed easy, like life just got miraculously better as a result of that moment. Like um, there were definitely challenges after that as well, but um, it was like an evolution, like an evolving moment, you know, for me, if that makes
It's
sense.
absolutely, it sounds very much like, where you're, for those 5 years of not crying or not feeling, allowing yourself to feel what you were feeling with your grandmother, almost an element of just like trying to move through life without having acknowledged some, like a part of yourself or something that you were experiencing. And that can be like a huge burden. I think sometimes people will build their lives ongoing, for years without having addressed something really poignant like that. I personally, with grief, I feel really blessed because I got to watch my sons in grief, and children, being children are so much more real, especially if you allow them to have their own experiences. And like your story actually reminds me of my son's grandmother. So my mother-in-law was dying or had just died, and I remember my middle son was 5, and we were in the home where she died, and the kids, we had like raced there in the morning, like through every red light. It was like a Sunday morning, 6 a.m. They called us. She'd actually already died, but anyways, um, my kids were watching TV in this like little room, and I went in to sit with them. And my 5-year-old, who hardly ever watched TV at that point and was quite engaged in the show, pulled his attention away from it and looked at me and was like, "I don't understand what's happening." Which was wild that he had that much, And I was like, "Oh, well, come with me." And I took his hand and we went and sat beside grandma and like stroked her face and held her hand. And I was like, "She's gone. Like her spirit's not in her body anymore." And he started to cry and he was like, "I feel so different." He couldn't say his R's. And it was like instant and complete grieving. He cried in that moment. He was like, "I feel so different. I never knew anybody who died before." He cried, said goodbye to grandma. Half an hour later, we were like out on a beach, and this was at like English Bay in Vancouver, and he fully clothed walked into the water and then started rolling around in the sand and just like repeated that over and over again. And then his older brother joined in, his younger brother, and like we're just sitting there on the beach, like watching this like immediate, complete grieving experience. Like, I don't know, children are so amazing for that. I have a lot of stories about that, but we won't go into that right now. But the difference of being
Mm.
allowed to feel, not just being allowed, but like having the capacity or space to like experience your emotions in the moment is such a like powerful thing, which sounds like that moment in the gym where you're like under all this pressure, and then second grandmother, anyways, and all of that, like just being able to like release it from your body and that bringing you back to your own, to yourself, really, and the power of that. There's like this really cool beam of light right now. It's perfect. Over your head. The internet is a little bit choppy though. I don't know if it's your connection or mine. You're a little bit frozen. You're very frozen, actually.
Yeah, it could be mine.
Okay.
It certainly could be me.
Yeah. So, okay, I have again so many questions. Where do we want to go from here? I'd love to hear your entrepreneurial journey a little bit more beyond that, because you ran another gym after this. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that like opening another gym? And
So I got really lucky. Again, like my life is really a series of just right time, right people, right place, all of that. And so I had met these guys that were running another gym, and they invited me in right away to work for them as a like head trainer and run the training part of the gym and start building a team and growing like that avenue because they were businessmen and like they had their backgrounds were not fitness, whereas mine was. And so they brought me in as a sort of expert and just someone that was familiar with the business and the business model and how to run the day-to-day stuff, like the operations of it. And like that was really cool because um, the other place I was working out of, it wasn't working out the way, we had hoped after about 10 months. So like it was doing well financially, but we wanted to go in different directions. And so it was perfect timing because I, just moved to this new gym, like again. Uh, and this was like an ideal situation because they were building from the ground up. Um, they were really investing a lot into marketing um, and actually just building the space up to be really welcoming and really like functional. And and so I got to be there from the very beginning in this sort of role. Like although I didn't own the business yet. Um, I was very much like a trusted advisor because of my background and my skill. I had become really well known as just really good at the job, like running those types of classes, like CrossFit classes and just teaching overall. And I had trained a couple of other coaches in the area that spoke highly of me, which was really cool. So I had this reputation that I wasn't even aware of. And and um, the gym grew rapidly, really fast. And within just a couple of years, like I'd say it was like a year and a half to 2 years, we had reached the point of like, where I want to say business was just good. And we had outgrown like our own expectations of membership. Some months of revenue we were doing like between 50 and 90 grand. And and then and it got to a point where the owners were, I want to say, getting bored. Um, there were three of them, and they were each going in their own direction, and as a partnership, it wasn't like an ideal situation. And so they made the offer to just sell the gym to me, which was really cool. It was like two years into like running the business, basically on the operations end, and and within about a month, found funding, and we bought the business like outright. And it was a weird time. This was in 2019, and it was a really weird time. Um, Membership planning, because ownership is not take putting the effort going, um, and we didn't really have systems as a team to go out and do sales yet. And so when I took over the business, it was steadily declining. And there were a lot of things in place and sort of unwritten rules and policies that were keeping us from being really successful. And so when we took over the business, it was there was a lot that I wanted to change, a lot of cultural changes that I wanted to make. We had a big team. We had like 11 like other coaches on the team, and then you know I had an administrative assistant, um, and then I had two partners as well. And so it was a lot of people that we sort of inherited. Each person, each everyone comes with their problems, and then there was this whole cultural problem that needed fixing. And so we spent some time working on all these problems, right? And instituting new systems. Like I wanted my team, I wanted every single person to be like trained in sales. And so we did that. We started training our team in sales, like at the very least, just how to invite people to the gym and come and take a class. Like if you meet people when you're out, wherever, um, you should have the ability to invite people to come and try it out. I thought that would make sense. Uh, we me like personal training, which was really cool, because it allowed us like not focus so much on membership growth, but rather focus on providing just really high quality service and getting good results for the people that are actually coming every day. And so we were able to sell more expensive offers to people that were already coming for years and finally get them like way better results. Like, people who
Mm.
are coming to the gym for like 3 to 4 years and had plateaued. Okay, now we can like help them through that plateau or help them through an injury or help brand new people. And what's really cool is incorporating this essentially doubled our revenue.
You
Spending money
it's
like
frozen.
trying to grow. Is
The
the
Yeah,
screen
it just
frozen?
keeps it comes in and out. Like it's not super bad, but we are some of the audio. I don't know. And then it'll get good again. And I'm like, okay, it's good.
Oh no. Okay.
Tell everyone else they
Anyway,
can't see the internet right now. No, I don't know.
I know. Well, I'm in a basement at my sister's house.
Okay.
I don't know where the router is. Anyway, business was going well, and then it was 2020 all of a sudden, and the whole COVID thing happened.
How was that for your business?
It was um, I was just thinking about this. Maybe every day was like an adventure, and we were genuinely having fun with it because you we were in New York City, and you could see the writing on the wall with what was going to happen inevitably, which was businesses getting shut down. It was so obvious what was about to happen, even though, it's never happened before in our lifetime. But, the way that things were being portrayed in the news and um, through channels like people that we knew and that were part of, New York City government, it was pretty obvious what was happening. And so we took first steps and just closed down the building, um, and started running like an online class. And then, they forced businesses to shut down. So we got like a day or two ahead. Like we didn't cancel any memberships. We just invited people like, hey, we're going to start running classes online. Um, and we're going to provide each individual with custom programs that they can do at home. And you can put your membership on hold, or you can continue to pay and just, you know, take advantage of all of this. And then we rented out our equipment. So like of our, not all of it, most of it was rented out to our members.
Mhm.
They would like, they came by and signed a document, like an agreement, and they paid us a fee to rent it, and they got to take it home with them, which was pretty cool. And it was just a monthly fee until that we charged them until um, we asked for it back. And we are like, all right, we're going to start running classes again. um, I think it was like 85% kept their membership active. Yeah, about 85% kept their memberships active. And we continue to provide this service Like we actually hired a camera guy to come in. We built a small studio, and it was funny because I built the studio to look like a living room, and then we led classes. We led classes from the living room
Yeah.
because everyone else is like in their living room or in their backyard.
Yeah.
And we were running it kind of like a daily TV show. Like the first time in the morning, I would get on camera and it would be like announcements, like kind of like the a news announcement, and
Yeah.
and we would record a video every day of like a different workout that we'd be doing, and then we would lead live classes, and it was just super fun, super fun. About 6 months later, we just said, "Fuck it, let's reopen," and like revamped our system for how we run classes and how we bring people in. Uh, and I ran it very like uh, militarily, like rigid, because everyone was so used to that. Like, we were checking people's temperature on the way in and assigning a spot to them. And it was so funny, to look back, like, oh, we actually did that. It was so interesting. And people went along with it. When we reopened, every single class time was filled up. Um, and it wasn't long before other businesses, and specifically other gyms like the one we had, like CrossFit gyms, it wasn't long before they started going out of business. And so we began to absorb a lot of the clientele that were going to other places, at our gym. And 6 to 9 months into the whole COVID fiasco, we were like up by, I want to say, 200%.
Yeah.
Um, and I really, I folk firm personally, I'm like really proud of that. At There was no point when any of that stuff was going on where we complained or doubted our success. It was just obvious that we were going to make changes and we were going to adapt, and and not just adapt, but like take charge.
Mhm.
See, I feel this like immense responsibility when especially in that situation, like these people they need us, right? People that have a gym membership, they really need that gym. It's like their connection to a lifeline, or it's their connection to a new lifestyle that they're trying to adopt. And with a health crisis, doesn't it make sense for us to be like present and be that, like, actually be a lifeline? So I took this like responsibility for that, for our clients, um, because I really believe we're doing such and on health and speed. So needless to say, like, it was a positive, but it gave me something also, Veronica. It gave me the realization that I was personally ready for more and ready for something new.
Mhm.
And not July, April of 2022 is when I left that business, and went, you know, moved in the direction of just being a fully independent, um, side hustler, we can call it.
Yeah. And how's that journey been of being I love how you said that, a fully independent side. I was like ready for something that was not that. Fully independent side hustler. What are you going to be?
I don't know.
A fully independent side hustler.
So, well, it's either that or sometimes I say wizard. I became a wizard, um,
Yeah.
or a writer, philosopher. I'm unemployed. I can just tell people that too.
Yeah.
It's been the most enlightening journey. Because I've always had somewhere to be, you know. I've always had obligations and responsibility to be somewhere at a certain time my entire adult life. And this was I was 31 at the time when this happened, when I left, and all of a sudden I didn't set an alarm. So I stopped setting alarms. Anxiety in the morning, uh, as if I had to wake up, throw my shoes on, brush my teeth, get in my car, and speed to open up the gym at 4:45 in the morning, um, for a 5 o'clock class. That was my life for so long, and so I struggled to sleep, and I definitely experienced like a crisis, like an identity crisis, because I had attributed so much of who I was, who I am, um, to this persona as like the owner of a gym, the leader of this community, the leader of this team. Like, this is what I do. And I know I had started to leave that identity behind. Um, but at this point, it was like, all right, Band-Aid is ripped. Now you are none of that. You get to decide what you are, and you have this freedom. You're blessed with so much freedom. Um, I'll tell people, anyone listening right now who wants that type of freedom, like, make sure you have a plan for what you're going to do with that freedom, even if it's do nothing. Like, that's cool too. But it's really valuable to have a plan because you know the freedom that everybody craves is it's not in having zero responsibility. Like, that's not where it comes from. This was a such a strong, powerful lesson for me personally. It's like I realized, um, there's a lot more freedom in commitment, in being committed to something.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot more freedom in that.
That's something I've observed in many entrepreneurs who are wanting to create those, like the freedom of time, freedom of location, freedom of purpose, and have all those things. But the actual freedom is in owning the responsibility that comes with that. And it's like such an interesting, it's like a misnomer because I think people get this idea that they're going to, they know that they don't want to have to be responsible to something else, or they want to be working on different visions, or like you said, you knew you were ready for something with like more responsibility or a different type of responsibility. And but it does actually come with you're, as a solo entrepreneur, you're the one who decides everything, right? You're deciding like when the plane is leaving, you're deciding who's driving the plane and where it's going and who's on the plane. Like, you're deciding all the different factors. And absolutely, it can be a huge identity shift for people too, because there's so much of our like self-worth generally is wrapped up in, oh, I'm the guy who like leaves my house at 4:30 every morning because I got to be there, and these people are relying on me, and I have to be there for 5 a.m. This is my identity, and it fits in like all those conversations that you have where people are like, so what do you do? You're like, well, uh, today. Anyways, yeah, that's cool. And you recently took like another step in that and became like semi-nomadic, right? You put your family on the road and off you went on an adventure. I'd love to hear more about that and what that experience has been.
Yeah.
If you want to share.
Well, I'm, you know, today we are back in New York, back in our back at my sister's house. Um, and I just drove here from Phoenix, which was really fun in 6 days, which was I just wrote about this because when you drive alone for that long, you fall into this meditative state. I don't know if you've ever experienced that when you're just driving and it's an endless straight road and you got cruise control on and you're going like, relatively fast and there's nothing playing on the radio. So all you hear is, the sound of the tires on the pavement and the other cars going at their various speeds. And you just get into this hypnotic state. And I remember sitting there the other day like that, and I had my one arm sort of on my center console, just sort of resting there. And I had my dog put her head right on my arm, and she had just fallen asleep like that. And it was like that. We were like that for maybe an hour. It was just an hour straight, and I couldn't tell you anything that happened in that hour. Like I might have run over a lion. I don't know, but I was so in the zone. And you get a lot of time to think too. You get a lot of time to reflect. And this was at the right around 12 weeks of being like nomadic, we can say. And like we were definitely nomadic. Like we bounced around from place to place. The longest we stayed anywhere was like 11 days in about 12 weeks, 12-week time frame. And half of that was spent in a tent, like camping, which was super fun. But I got a lot of time to reflect, and I'm still processing it. It's almost like it never happened. Like it didn't
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel real. I remember telling you in the beginning, like when we first started driving, I was like, this doesn't feel real, Veronica, because
Yeah.
it was everything that we had ever hoped for, It was
Mm-hmm.
it was everything we wanted out of life, and we just went and did it. We
Yeah.
we pulled the plug, we gave ourselves got rid of our apartment, sold a bunch of stuff, moved things into storage, and packed up our pickup truck and just started driving. And suddenly we're just this new, we have this new identity. We're like this traveling family, which was so cool. It was so cool. And every single day was different. And I noticed that, or I realized this strange phenomenon. When I was, before we had left, before we went on this trip, I was really feeling stuck personally, professionally. Um, I wasn't training hard. Like I wasn't treating my body the way I knew uh, the way I want to, you know. I wasn't uh, working out. I was saying no to workouts. Um, I was spending a lot of time alone, you know, just by myself. I was making a lot of excuses. And for the most part, every single day was exactly the same. I would wake up and just go through the same routines. And I had a lot of freedom. You know, my son would be picked up by my in laws. So I would have the whole day without having to watch my son. And I'm framing it that way on purpose. So like my mind is like, okay, I have this free time. I can focus, I can work, but I would end up like not doing that, you know? And not I wouldn't be totally unproductive, but you know, there were certainly times where I procrastinated. And the days would just fly by because it's the same every day. It's so monotonous. But I noticed that while I was traveling, this was like toward the end of the last, well, in the last couple of weeks, because I was talking to someone about this. I noticed that I was getting so much more done in a day. And so I was so much more present in the things I was doing, like present with my wife and with my child and with myself. I started waking up early again, like just naturally waking up early and immediately going for a run or doing a workout or jumping in a pool, like doing a cold plunge. And I would just start my day and I wouldn't think about anything. I would just go. And then I would be so inspired after that that I would then sit down and write for a while, or I would just play with my son for a while. And then I would get work done, or I would have calls with clients or partners, and then we would go for a hike. Um, and then we would go like out to eat together as a family or to cook together as a family. And then at night we'd go out for a hike again and we'd like look at the stars, and like this would just happen every single day, and it was just this flow, you know. So cool. Time slows down.
Mhm.
Time just slowed down for me because I got out of the routine. I broke the routine. And you know, the way I like to think about it is I just allow things to happen. It surprised a lot of people when we would tell them, yeah, we don't know where we're going next, because we'd meet
Yeah.
people all the time on the road. We keep meeting people everywhere we travel. We meet amazing people, amazing human beings, and they're so curious about our lifestyle because it's different. It's very, you know, not the norm, not the status quo, and we genuinely don't have an idea of where we're going next until like maybe a day or two before but there have been times where we just pack up all of our stuff out of an Airbnb or out of a tent. We pack up our tent, we start driving somewhere, and we're like, so where do you want to stay tonight?
Yeah.
You know? And it's like a lot of people I think would feel there's so much pressure, but I felt so much freedom. I feel so much freedom in that, in having no obligation to be anywhere. Like we don't we could do anything, we could go anywhere we want, anywhere we want.
Yeah.
And that's a level of freedom that everyone should taste at some point in their life.
Yeah.
But very few are willing to surrender and let go of the need to control everything.
Yeah.
Very few are willing to do that, and I know it's rare, and I know people listening, or um, anyone who hears this would either wholeheartedly agree that it's the most liberating feeling to have zero obligations, right? But there are others who are like having like anxiety just listening to that.
Yeah.
Like, what do
Well,
you mean?
it does require a certain amount of like self leadership, right? And not only, it's not just you alone in a vehicle. It's like you have your wife and your toddler, preschooler age child with you as well, and then you guys decided to get a puppy because that was, perfect time to get a puppy, of course. But that, there's just like, to me, it demonstrates an element of being able to like lead and make decisions as a group as well, that I think for many families that would be like stressful. You know what I mean? Whereas like you guys, it sounds like you guys were navigating it with a lot of like joy and freedom. And I'm sure there were moments where it was like hairy, but it is wild because we are, from such a young age, most of us live a life that's very predetermined, that it's like, at 8 a.m. Monday to Friday, this is going to happen. And then at, Saturday, this is going to happen. And you're going to be here and you're going to know where you're sleeping. And suddenly you're just in this like, well, where do you want to sleep tonight? It is a wild experience to have that. I guess it's also the element of like draining yourself to feel certainty in uncertainty, and like realizing that there's like that inner calm is there for you even while the day to day is like unknown. I personally love that type of exploration because you learn so much about yourself and about your preferences, desires, visions, dreams, um, how you want to like move through the world, all of it. I'm curious for you, and maybe this is like just a big question mark and you keeping it that way, that's totally understandable. What's next for you?
Um, so I mean, travel wise, mm,
Any wise?
mm,
Yes, travel
yeah.
wise or
Um,
entrepreneurially. Maybe you want to talk
so
about.
I mean, talk about what?
I said I do want to talk about jujitsu.
Jujitsu. Yeah.
Eventually, we'll get there.
Yeah. So um, in we're in New York for my son's birthday. That's why I hurried to get here by car, uh, because we couldn't fly with the dog. And so I drove back, and we're going to leave New York again October 1st, and start driving back out west. We're going to take a different route than we did last time to experience a different part of the country. And the idea is uh, to get we want to get a place in Colorado for um, the month of, probably end of November until about January. We want to have a place in Colorado so that we could ski every day or as often as possible. And just we love the atmosphere, the people that we've met in this particular area that we want to be in. And yeah, so that's like our next big move again is in another 2 weeks, we're going to start another cross country journey and make our way to Colorado. Um, but that gives us a little while to get there. And in the between time, I am going to find a place that I can do some flight training so I could get a pilot's license. That's like always been a dream of mine. And I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I might as well do it now. Why would I wait another day? So I'm actually considering doing it in Phoenix because it's really predictable weather there and just good conditions to fly in until like basically all year. Whereas other places might have trouble with the weather, uh, yeah, mostly the weather. Um, so I'm thinking we're going to end up there before we go to Colorado. So we have this plan to just continue this lifestyle for as long as possible, or until we get bored or find someplace we want to settle. Um, there's a lot going on the entrepreneurial side too. Um, a lot that's taken, excuse me, a lot that's like been taking shape in the last couple of months. One of them is the our property management company, B&B Ace, where we connect uh, savvy and smart investors with qualified and professional property managers to help run their short-term rental. And so if you have like an Airbnb and you're managing it yourself, we match you with a manager, but the type who's actually going to, give you more business and make you more money. And so we actually guarantee that you'll make more money using a manager than you will doing it by yourself. So we're launching that. Actually, we're officially launching like ads that we're running tomorrow. Like our ad campaign starts tomorrow, which I'm excited for. And that all came about because I got connected with this guy who I had known for a few years, and we reconnected. And he was starting this company, but needed some support in the marketing space. So he brought me on board as a consultant slash partner, which is really cool because I get to be a partner and work as actually work with someone else like who's invested in the business and is, equally trying to make it grow, which I really appreciate. But I also have the freedom to like do whatever I want within the company as well as outside the company. Like I'm not tied to just working for B&BAs, even though it's taken up a lot of my mental bandwidth because it's such a cool and unique concept. And there's absolutely no other business like it at all that we found. Like there's no one else doing what we're doing, which seems to be a good thing in business, by the way, when you find that sweet spot, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I've been working on. And then a few other partnerships have come up just like that, where I get to uh, do what I do best, which is take the creative ideas that you have as an entrepreneur and organize the mess, you know, because right now it's a mess of ideas
Yeah.
in your head. And I'm really good at the organization, and I get paid to organize because I'm not just organizing ideas, I'm organizing people at the same time. And it's so cool to find that. Uh, and then with that, we come up with some really unique marketing campaigns that leverage direct response advertising and um, different ways to appeal to a variety of types of clients. So instead of just niching down and focusing on one individual person, we're able to get broad and speak to like multiple audiences at the same time with our marketing, which opens up so much opportunity. And this is what I found um, has been a business model that works well for me. Is like I help these entrepreneurs find new opportunities for revenue that did not exist before, at least in
Mhm.
their eyes, in their minds. Like they didn't know it existed. Um, and to me, it's like, all right, based on everything you just shared about who you serve, what you do, the results you can provide, and the problems you solve, like there's some obvious wins here that are possible, and we can reach them in like days. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, I I had gotten connected with this guy who had this really cool idea for an advertising platform that was like also a guide service, like a travel guide service for people that are traveling in and out of his state. And he didn't know how to position the offer to um, customers, which is like businesses that want to advertise, right, to tourists. And it was super easy to me. It was like obvious what to do, and it was to like create partnership agreements with people and then go and highlight their business from the perspective of a customer, a tourist, right? And then demonstrate that to this big email list of people that are planning to come through and travel in the state, and then to keep doing that. So he has this idea for an advertising platform. He didn't know how to sell it. Within 36 hours, Veronica, we had revamped it, clarified the idea, simplified it, and gotten new sales
Mm.
within just 36 hours. And it's like he didn't even know
Yeah.
that this was possible
Yeah.
previously. And
Yeah.
yet here we are. Um, so that's pretty cool. And that's like the work that I've been really kind of
This is
dipping my
the wizard.
head into. Yeah. I it's fun. And we talked about this. I love getting to solve problems and puzzles, but also just use this creative side of my brain that um, that the same side of my brain that I use when I'm like improvising on the piano or the guitar. It's like I get to figure things out and make new sounds and new things happen and test it out and see if this works and see if this works. And eventually it comes together and it sounds, okay, uh, or it sounds beautiful, or it sounds intriguing, and it just creates this new energy, right? And it's the same type of work, and it happens so naturally. It's happened so naturally um, when I get to work with entrepreneurs who are feeling stuck or confused and like they're not sure what to do next, or they have this brilliant idea and they've made some progress but not enough,
Mhm.
because frankly they're just not organized. They don't have their shit together. It's like a white belt on the mats. You know what I mean? It's like
I am
they
familiar,
have the
actually.
idea. I kind of know what to do, but they have no idea what to do. And next thing you know,
Yes.
you're getting punched in the face, or you're taking an elbow to the groin because, well, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. So
Clean
cool.
them up.
I love I love
Yeah.
hearing about your just your natural evolution as an entrepreneur. Like I really do observe that people, when they go into becoming their own boss, like it's something that a lot of people want, they take the step into it. Often then they create something that is like they left the 9 to 5 and now they're working 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. instead. And there's like a sort of like a system that they're following that's actually very much not their genius. And then there's like what you just described, where you have these different collaborations, these different opportunities that you're working on that most likely, if you had sat down 6 months ago and been like, I want to run a program that is, yeah, totally. I want to run a program that's like what you're doing with the vacation rentals. Like I imagine you didn't even know that that opportunity existed, and these things just come from saying yes to one thing and another,
Yeah.
and like recognizing gifts that you have inside of you. And that's super cool. I do want to, as if we're going to wrap it up, which I think is a great idea, I do want to talk about jujitsu and fighting and what got you into martial arts. So tell us about, how did you start in martial arts? What got you there?
I was bored. Not bored. I wanted something challenging and new. And I went and tried a class, and it was challenging. And I felt humbled for sure, as I was very strong and athletic and fit by all of my own standards. You know, uh, I had a lot of endurance, and I could deadlift 400 pounds on a barbell, and I could run a 5 minute mile, and I could do all these cool things that I thought were impressive. And then you go to a jujitsu class and you're getting beat up by everyone who has even a day of experience. And it was really cool. It was just so cool to me. And I wanted to do it as a kid, but I was just lazy as a kid. And I went to take some classes, but never went back. But then again, as an adult, I started training. I went to one class, and and then I tried to go to another class like a couple of days later, and no one showed up to the class. Like there was no teacher, there was no students, no one was there, and I was like, "What the fuck is happening?" And I was really pissed off actually, because I was like, in my head, I was like, I would never do this to my clients or my members. Like, it's so unprofessional. So I just said, screw it, I'm not going back. And I didn't go back for a year. It wasn't until um, I was I actually ended up going to take a jujitsu class with another guy. Like, he was a guy I knew through CrossFit, and he also taught jujitsu. And so he was teaching a CrossFit class and then a jujitsu class right after it, at this school in New Jersey. And I would go there sometimes because he was like a mentor of mine from the coaching in the coaching world, who's just been at it for so long. And so I was there, I did the class, I stayed for jujitsu, and that's the moment where I realized, like, okay, I could do this. Like, this is actually really awesome. And then I went back to the original school, and I joined like the next day, and I started attending regular classes, and I just never stopped. I never stopped. This was in 2019 also, because I remember it was right before my wedding, it'll be 5 years, um, in just a couple of weeks. And so yeah, that's how I got started, and it just became so addicting,
Mm.
because it is. It is. It's like endless. The amount
Yeah.
of reps you can put in and the amount of nuance to every little detail. And I noticed that, and I just remember looking at myself or just thinking about all of this before going to class one day when I just started out, and I was like, I'm going to commit to this, but I'm going to commit to this without any ego, or as best as I could without any ego, meaning like I don't want to just get really good and just be like get really good fast and start competing and start like thinking I'm like better than everyone else. I really want to go into this with a totally open mind, and like I set this intention on day one, and I still have the same intention every single class I go to. And it's like, I'm just here to learn one thing today. Just, I want to learn one new thing today. And that's it. And that's my entire focus. It's like, I'm going to learn something today. And, and now it's like such a part of me.
Mhm.
It's so strange. It's like, it's always been a part of me. And I went to train last night for the first time being back in New York at my school I've been training at. And I walked in and like I didn't tell them I was coming, so I like, kind of surprised the instructor. He was like, "Oh shit, you're here! Awesome!" And it's been like 3 months, and we just we started training, um, and while I was traveling for the last 3 months, I only went on the mats maybe 10 times, which was hard for me, and I hurt my knee, so it was like uh, difficult to get back into it, like the swing of things, plus all the travel. So I didn't have much training in the last couple of months, but um, yeah, going back last night, I felt like better than I've ever felt on the mats, which was really cool.
Mhm.
Um, like it just feels so natural and so like a part of who I am. And I do it because like I genuinely love the challenge, and I love the art, and I love the sport, but I also want to be really hard to kill. And I think that's important.
Yeah.
Um, I want to be hard to kill, and it's the same reason I shoot my bow as often as I can. I want to have skills that I can use to defend my family or hunt or like live and survive. And so I train jujitsu, and I work out, and I run, and I shoot my bow, and I practice sales so I can be persuasive, and I think all of these are like prime survival skills. I'll never starve, I'll never go broke, and I like to think that I won't deteriorate in a wheelchair either,
Mhm.
because I train
Yeah.
because I train. Plus,
Totally.
it's just fun, it's fun.
Yes. I mean, jujitsu is one of those things where, like you said it really well, that you felt like it had always been a part of you. Like that definitely encapsulates how I feel, and I also feel most like myself in that environment. There are other places where I also feel very much like myself, but there's something about it that is very natural to me for whatever reason, and um, yeah, I love it. I also love that you can travel. Last night I went to there's like a mixed martial arts gym here, 8 days martial arts in Whitehorse, and I went and did a Muay Thai class there last night, and it was just like amazing to just step into that environment and immediately, and like I was wearing a rash guard from our school in Scottsdale that was like the spring gi training camp, and right away the teacher was like, he knew a bunch of the guys who had come and taught at the spring training camp and was asking me about their seminars. It's like actually such a small world, even though it's a universal thing. It's like yeah, I love how that's evolving. I know you have to run. Is there anything else that you want to share with us before we wrap things up today? It's been totally a pleasure having you and hearing your stories. Uh-oh,
Is there any other
lost you.
questions you have to ask?
Um, yeah, I'm curious if you are excited about competing in jujitsu. I know you have done it before. Is it something that is like lighting you up right now, or are you like not a focus? I'm curious where are you at
Um,
with that.
no, it's not interesting to me.
Yeah.
I've thought about it. I've I would do it if the opportunity presented itself and it was just kind of falls in my lap, that kind of thing. Um, but it's not something I'm seeking out or training for or thinking about, you know. And I've been asked that before. And maybe that'll change in the future, but right now it's just not a priority, you know. Plus,
Yeah.
there's like so many other things that I like to do.
Mhm.
And so I train jujitsu a lot, like every day when I can, um, at least like 5 days a week when I'm, you know, in a rhythm as much as possible. But
Mhm.
not at the intensity that I know is required for training, like for a competition. At least to my expectation. Like I could probably go and win a tournament now against blue belts because I'm a little advanced for a blue belt. And everywhere I go and I train with blue belts at their schools, I do well. And like on the
Mhm.
other side, you never know who you're going to meet, you know, and you never know who is training their ass off and is looking for blood on the mats. And I'm like, bro, I want to go climb a mountain tomorrow, so you stay away from my ankles. But it doesn't really work that way in a
Yeah.
tournament because they're trying to win and they're like they have everyone screaming at them and they like told all their friends they're gonna win. I'm like, I'm just not feeling that energy right now. But if that might change, I don't know. We
Yeah.
shall see. I got really
Totally.
inspired. I met this guy a couple weeks ago in Page, Arizona, where I was staying for a few days. And this guy was 67 years old,
Mhm.
67, white belt, and we were rolling, and he was good. And I thought he was in his 50s, but he's 67 years old, and he told me that he competes regularly, like he goes to tournaments.
Mhm.
But there's very few people in his age group, so you know it's like they're not killing each other at that in that bracket, that age bracket. But he goes and he competes, and it keeps him like it's fun, and he just enjoys it. So that it did inspire me a little bit. So it might change. Who knows? Right now,
Yeah.
it's a no.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have your whole life ahead of you with jujitsu, right? I mean, that's the thing. It's like there's not really an
Yeah,
expiration date on that. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. It's a forever thing. It's a
Yeah.
forever thing. Well,
Cool.
thank
Well,
you for this awesome interview conversation.
yeah. Thank you.
Awesome.
And yeah, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and keep us updated on your adventures. Keep me updated,
Of
anyways.
course.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Veronica.
Bye, Matt.